All right, here's a few tinctures that I've recently made, and I just want to show you. This is passiflora, or passion flower, which is a vine that grows in tropical, subtropical areas. A lot of it grown in Hawaii. There it's called lilikoi, and it puts off the passion fruit, which some people are familiar with, real nice tropical flavored fruit. The aerial parts of the plant, that's another way of saying the parts of the plant above the root structure, contain a lot of MAO inhibitors. If you know what that is, MAO inhibitors, monoamine oxidase inhibitors. If you know what that is, great. If you don't, great. We'll talk about it more another time. But it has a really powerful effect on your neurotransmitters and keeping them active in your body. What I've done is taken the dry herb, the aerial parts of the herb here, that's the stems and the leaves, like this, and I covered them. I did about 50% herbs, and about the rest covered in a really high quality vodka. I labeled it there, 1 part herb, 2 parts vodka, and I let that sit. Here I put the date. I made that on January 1st. That's just a good idea because you typically, if you're making a lot of these, it's kind of can be hard to keep track of them. Covered them like that, let them sit. When it's done, I strained it off. And that's the strained tincture there. And you can see that that clear vodka is now a nice amber color because it's absorbed all the medicines from this plant. So I'm just going to put this into a bit of a shot glass here. And Len, I'll let you have a shot of that.
Let's get it on camera here. I'm drinking it. All right. Wow, that's unbelievable. It doesn't actually taste, I can hardly taste any alcohol at all. It's mostly...
Yeah, it's mostly, that's a pretty strong one. This is the one that I made recently, taking the tonka beans, which we showed in the last video. Don't try this at home. Tonka beans is an illegal food additive in the United States. And vanilla beans. And so what we've made is a vanilla extract, or an amaretto kind of a taste. I threw a few almonds in there as well. So yeah, this is like an amaretto. This is great for... This extraction is great for flavoring drinks. And so it's got a really nice vanilla flavor, like a vanilla extract you'd buy in a store, except that I made it with the scraps of the vanilla beans that I had left over from recipes that I made in the past. So it's a great way to keep recycling your beans and make sure you get all the bang for your buck.
All right. Let me try. This one is again?
That one's vanilla bean.
Wow, that is super strong. That's like stronger than anything you can get in any store.
Yeah. Making your own tinctures, there's just nothing like it as far as the power, the potency of them, and the flavor of them. So this is reishi mushroom, Ganoderma lucidum.
Wild from your backyard here?
No, this is one that I actually got commercially because it came all nice and sliced like that. And since I have the wild one, which I'm mostly using for my tea, and I had this left over, I thought I'd tincture it. So you can see in that bottle there, that bottle's filled with reishi mushroom and vodka. You can see that the amount of reishis in there is like what you would use to make a pot of tea. So that's a good way to illustrate that. I
love those little bottles. Where did you get those?
A gift from my mother. You can see that the amount of reishi in here is not really that much. So a few drops of this, like most people use with tinctures, really wouldn't be that much reishi. We're going to boil some of that off there.
So we're taking the alcohol off.
And we're going to heat that up until we boil the alcohol right off. And that's just going to take a minute till it gets up to temperature. You could do this over a candle. It would probably blacken the bottom of the metal a little bit. But you could do it that way, or you could set it right on a stove.
And how long did you let it sit in that container for?
So this has been soaking for since about the 1st of January, so about 2 weeks. That's the minimum that you'd want to do for a tincture. You could do them a lot longer. I like Peter Ragnar has a longevity strategy where he makes tinctures that he plans to harvest in 20 or 50 years, and that gives him something to look forward to in the future. So some tinctures can be set aside a long time. Reishi is really nice to tincture with things like goji berry, ginseng, and a lot of the other Chinese tonic herbs as well. Also a lot of the other Chinese tonic mushrooms.
Dave also recommends putting it in just a glass of water and letting it sit overnight.
Yeah, alcohol will eventually evaporate right out into the air anyway. You can see that if you took rubbing alcohol, you put it on your skin or you put it on a countertop, it evaporates pretty quickly. It's probably not going to take long at all. We're gonna let that condense right down, and what we'll end up with is the same medicines from the reishi mushroom, which are stable up to pretty high temperatures, so they're not going to be destroyed by this. It's not like a cooked food where we've actually damaged the molecules. Those polysaccharides in the reishi mushroom will stay stable. That's starting to rapidly boil now. That alcohol is being cooked off real quickly, and we're going to be left behind with the water, which hasn't gotten hot enough to evaporate yet, and the mushroom, the reishi mushroom polysaccharides, and all the medicines, which we then can pour into a cup, and it will be like a very concentrated tea. And so that's this same tincture here. And what we're doing is we're using this boiling off strategy to get this same medicine here without getting the effects of the alcohol. Now we could take this same substance here, mix that with DMSO, apply it topically, because we know that reishi mushroom is anti-parasitical, it's antifungal. So if somebody had, say, like a nail fungus, for instance, and they wanted to daily, a couple times a day, you could apply that to the infected nail with the reishi mushroom or with another antifungal kind of extract. You mix it right in there with the DMSO and let it soak in. If you did that a couple times a day and you really kept on top of that fungus for a couple of weeks, you could eliminate it. Whereas most
that quickly in a couple weeks.
Yeah, fungus you can usually get rid of within 3 to 4 weeks. But most people's strategy just isn't good enough, and most doctors haven't figured out a strategy. So most people with a nail fungus end up with it for life because they never get a good enough strategy to eliminate it.
The strategy meaning diet,
meaning stop feeding the fungus the sugars from your diet, and then getting on a really good topical antifungal and staying on top of it for a long period of time until you finally wiped it out completely. Even after it appears to be gone, that doesn't mean that it's completely gone, just because you can't see it. I would stay on it for a few weeks past when you can no longer see it. So we're going to boil that another few seconds, and then we'll pour that off. We'll let that cool. That could be poured directly into your drink, into your tea, into your blender if you were going to make a smoothie, or you could just drink it straight as an elixir.
How come a lot of herbal companies that make alcohol tinctures don't just boil off the alcohol and just sell you the nutrients without the...
The alcohol is a stabilizer for the liquid, right? If you put a nutrient in together with water, eventually bacteria, yeast, and fungus are going to find their way in there and live off those nutrients.
So as long as you cook it and then drink it fast, it's not going to have that...
Yeah, that's not going to be a problem. But if it's sat around, nutrients in stale water become like a swamp. And swamps are notorious for growing a lot of kind of yeast and funguses and stuff like that. And you can see that the boil stopped here. See that, Len? It's almost done boiling there. That's because what we've got left there is water, not a lot of alcohol.
And it has to add a higher temperature to boil the water.
Yeah, so after we've hit the maximum point for alcohol evaporation, then there's sort of a dead zone between that and reaching the temperature that would cook off the water.
That's good to know.
We're going to pour that off, we're going to let it cool, and we'll come back to that in a few minutes.